Awesome. Isabel and council, thanks for hosting this. I am, really excited to actually look at people's faces and talk about this project together. Because this is it's really a critical project for our community. The convention center has been, being worked on for, well over a decade now. We are finally in a place where, at least I believe, all elected bodies are pulling forward to get this done. And what's important to me is that we really empower the CIB to move forward with the project, and we get out of as many details as we can. That's why we have appointed people, so that they can make decisions. And, I strongly believe in a distributed leadership model. That's what we're running here at the city. So when we appoint a team, what we want to do is let them run at the top of their leadership ability. And of course, in order to do that, we set the guardrails and the parameters for accountability. And we do that well, and we do it hopefully at the beginning. Because anything that, once we start moving with this, as we've already seen, anything that happens that is unexpected is an opportunity to lose trust. And so I hope that we are all engaging in this conversation today in the spirit of advancing this very important project for our community and really openly discussing what's important in terms of guardrails. So, the budget is one of those things. But that once we set the CIB in full motion to execute on this project, that we will really allow them to do their work. And not without interaction, of course, conversation and opinions can be offered. But that we as electeds will do our best to remove friction and let this process really move forward. And move forward as quickly as is feasible with my new favorite term, which is the minimal bureaucracy viable.
Right.
Minimal viable bureaucracy. And I think we can get there. This is a construction project, and so many of us have done capital projects. I think we can get there. And I'm looking forward to working as a team with this board.
Well, I agree. I do. Thank you. I think that the most critical point to keep in mind is progress and moving forward and not getting in the way of the people we've appointed to do the job. So really, just saying in other words, I think what you were saying is we have folks put in place, we're entrusting them to make good decisions. I think we all want the best project that we can get, and we know that eyes are on us from the state. So I don't want anything to get in the way of them being able to do their job. That said, I recognize that we all have wants around this project and what we would love to see. I want to say to ESOP specifically that your interpretation of how people were taking that letter is exactly how I took that letter. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, didn't know we were doing this. Hearing you talk, I'm understanding that what you're meaning is here are things that we are interested in and concerned about and would like to see. That did not come across in the tone for me. And so I would, if you're asking, recommend a softer wording, something more on a list of things that we've discussed and are interested in either hearing more about from the CIB or engaging in conversation on this topic.
Hi, I agree with what Mayor Thompson and my colleague, Kate Wiltz was saying. We are definitely up against a timeline, and as it has been mentioned before, do have the State House looking, and it is very important for us to realize that what we are doing, or a halt, or whatever we're doing, all eyes are on us. We already had our proverbial dad at the State House tell us last year that the, Monroe County needs a dad to come down and tell us what to do. And I think we all think we know what the State House can do. I'm just saying, they can stay in their lane and we can do ours as well. But with that being said, I think this is a very important time for us to make sure that we all know and we recognize that everybody here has an opportunity and has a particular person that they appointed, and that we should have faith in our appointed people to the CIB to go ahead and do forth what we have expected them to do. Of course, we can have a wish list of the things and expectations, and we all, are on the mindset of, hey, let's have this Christmas list. Let's go ahead and have that out there. But ultimately, I think it's a good collaborative start. I also think that, we definitely want to make sure that we're doing this progress and doing so as much as we can, because this convention center expansion also is the vitality of our local businesses. And what we are seeing locally, and our businesses starting to fade as a result of a lot of different things. But as we are continuing to see businesses, have been around for a very long time, not be able to flourish and do what they want to do because of a lot of different things, we're up against a time clock. So I really want to make sure that we all are of knowledge and understanding that, yes, we all have our roles and what we're supposed to do. But ultimately, whether we like it or not, the State House is watching, and what we will or what we will not do could affect us. So I just wanted to definitely point that out as well. And also, I'm very curious about the Civic Center conversation. I know there's been lots of talk about what is, what will be, teen rooms, different things like that. So I'm very curious to know a little bit more about that. But I'm very thankful for us to finally have this conversation collaboratively, and looking forward to progress down the road.
Allow me to be brief in my remarks. My very first meeting as a county councilman was downstairs, and we were talking about this very same thing. And here we are talking about it again, and that's not anyone's fault, of course, but what I'm hearing from my constituents is, let's get this thing built. And that's why I was very happy to nominate someone to the CIB. I trust the work of the CIB. And I look to them to do a lot of this work, and I think that's all I have to say about this issue.
So I appreciate everybody's comments so far. And my city council colleagues, I appreciated your discussion. I'm really glad I was here to hear it in person. But I want to hearken to a new acronym, MVB. Minimal viable bureaucracy. So thank you for that. I think it's important that some of you know more about the history of what has gone on with the convention center planning so far. And I didn't prepare this, but I would like to just tell you very quickly that discussion started among elected officials and others in about 2016, and a planning committee was appointed in 2017. I was on the committee, and the committee pursued charrettes and community engagement. We're not new to this. We've heard a lot. Coming out of that, one of the things was that we wanted civic uses of the space. But civic uses are not as conceived at that time. Were not the same as those necessarily in your item 20 in the draft letter. That is because a convention center is an event center. It is an event space that is managed to have as maximum use as possible to reduce costs and cover future planning. It takes a lot of management to have a convention center be successful. And having space that is devoted to non-events or non-revenue functions is difficult and has not been in the planning for our architects and other consultants. That doesn't mean that events involving certain groups would not take place. We use the convention center today as a civic center. All the not-for-profits who have large events use this for their fundraising. You uses it. And I just find it hard to see that setting aside space for non-event operations is going to be a wise use. I'm not an expert in this. I just want to caution everybody about their expectations in these regards. Because there's civic and there's other civic. And we do have other venues for some of these civics. I'm sorry to say, I haven't identified a senior center anywhere in Bloomington.
Right.
There's a great one at Area 10 Agency on Aging, and there is an East Side Area 10 gathering place, although it needs a physical home actually. But we have many items on our wish list that are not going to be realized with an expanded convention center, if it is going to be a convention center, and that's what we have planned for it, using the state law enabling us to have a food and beverage tax to build or expand with. So that's what I have to offer, and I'm glad to hear other comments from everybody.
Thank you.
I'm really sorry that I missed your earlier discussion, because I think that might have made me view things rather differently than I did when I first read this letter. Which I read, I'm afraid is being rather high-handed. And I became concerned. One of the big reasons for pushing for a CIB was to try to remove politics from this whole process. Just put it in the hands of people who we have all appointed and feel good about. I feel very good about the county appointments. I'm hoping you feel good about your city appointments. And our intention all along was to allow them to make decisions. And to just, we've appointed people who understand this community, who understand the broader aspects of this community. And it was our intention to let them do what they need to do to make this actually happen. And yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your earlier conversation. It might have made me view things rather differently.
I just want to say that Commissioner Gittens couldn't be here today because she had another meeting. And thank you all again for hosting us, and cupcakes look lovely. Everything in pink. I have, yes, I absolutely agree with everyone said. The CIB has been appointed to do this job. They're doing great work already. They're moving so fast, so much faster. This is a group of very, very smart and engaged people. And that's the energy in this room is pretty phenomenal, by the way. Even with pink cupcakes. I do want to echo that the significance of having the CIB and relying on them to keep moving this project forward so that we don't run afoul of the state legislature and the stick that they have presented. So my other comments are this. I agree with Counselor Monson that it's very important, especially for folks who are newer to their elected positions, to please learn as much as you can about the history of this. And I don't know if somebody is willing to put together a list of links to meetings, packet documents, et cetera, so that folks can get that history lesson, because this is a very smart group and we do our homework. And it would be nice to have that in one place as sort of a memorial. Now, a couple of concerns that I have, and I prepared for this meeting based on the letter. So I just want to raise a few points and ask a couple of questions that may be rhetorical at this moment, but if you wouldn't mind indulging me. Schmidt and Associates at their May 8th meeting said that the best practice is to provide 750 parking spaces for convention center of this size. Now, I've read in number 7 of your points that I'm gonna go out of order, sorry, it's just the order it all appeared to me. That the 4th Street garage is available. There are only 195 spots that are not currently leased, so that's 195. Plus, they also, Schmidt and Associates, did a count of parking spaces to the west of the current convention center, the south, and the east. And they came up with 471 spots. So now we're at 566. Well, that's pretty darn close, except that when we build the center, some of those spots are going to disappear. So we're not that close. And so that is a real concern. I would love if everyone would come here in the greenest way possible and remain here in the greenest way possible. But we have people who are probably going to be coming from within the state who are not going to fly, who are going to bring a car. We can encourage carpooling. We can find an off-site parking. I don't know what it is, but we have to provide parking. Otherwise, we're not inviting. And that's a concern. Absolutely, we've talked about the green requirements all along. We're all on board. This lovely, great idea, the best we could do. Hey, if we could do a net zero, let's do it. Point number 4 is a question, which relates to city property. Now, the CIB sent a letter saying what property is each entity making available. We got a request letter, you all got a request letter, right? What property is available? And that's when the Bunger Robertson property to the north was in question. They got the answer back that said, hey, you'd have to buy this property from us, but everything else is on the table. But when I read number 4, it doesn't read that way. Because there is a lot that the city owns south of the current convention center that's currently being used, convention overflow parking and hotel parking, I think too, but mostly convention overflow parking. I would like some clarity on whether or not that is something that would have to be purchased, or if that is something that, going with the initial response to the letter, is available. Points 8 and 10. There are concerns I have about the budget, and I get you all have your tough job of budgeting. Did my time on the county council. It's not an easy job, but it's the most important job there is. But there are concerns about how much of the design has to be okayed before we go get a bond, and that bonding process we gotta watch the timing on that. So I would ask for some grace in that section. Ask the CIB how it should go, or sit down between the CIB and the city council, have a conversation about the steps. When you have this come here, when you have that, if we all have that list to work off of, we will all be much, much, much happier. Last but not least, sorry. Point 16. No skywalks. That's an issue, because when people are in convention, they need to be able to be shepherded safely between buildings, especially like if they went with the east option. Even if they with the south option, they're talking about some sort of a skywalk. So if you look at the Schmidt and Associates presentation from May 8th, you can see that they use the word skywalk with every single option. Except the west option, which is actually probably the least viable, given it's up against a residential neighborhood. So, that is an issue of concern, and I get the aesthetic issue, you know, we always used to talk about the habit trails up at IUPUI. I get it's an issue of, you know, but it could be done very well, and, but it's a matter of not forcing people to go out into the elements to go between buildings, and certainly it's about pedestrian safety. And that's a huge, important thing, so, please reconsider. That's all we can ask. And again, thank you all for having us, and sorry for my list. But that's all right.
Sorry, not sorry. Gotcha. Councilor McKim.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a few comments that I've written out. These are different from comments that I made that were more specific to some of the items in the letter at the county council meeting on Tuesday. These are broader. Thank you. First of all, thank you all for providing this opportunity for a collaborative approach on government. We've already traveled really far together. The county council began deliberations and public meetings on the food and beverage tax, which is statutorily designed for the convention center expansion more than 10 years ago. We conducted public meetings throughout the county and heard public testimony on all sides of this issue, positive and negative and everything in between. We ultimately adopted the tax 7 years ago. We did so with the support and active encouragement of the city of Bloomington, both council and mayor, and we greatly value that support. This whole process has been incredibly complex with lots of players and lots of moving parts. We have a statutory food and beverage tax structure coming from the General Assembly that is unique to Monroe County, where the city council or the county council establishes the tax, but the revenues are split up between the city and the county based on the location of the establishment where the tax is collected. No one else has a structure like that. That's something the General Assembly made up on the spot for us. We have an existing convention center owned by the county. We have land that's been acquired by both the county and the city for convention center use. We have a convention visitors commission, which controls the innkeeper's tax. We have county commissioners, county council, city council, and mayor, all of whom have their statutory roles. And all the while, we have individual elected officials who've come and gone. So it's probably no wonder that we're still discussing this project rather than celebrating a completed project. As you've probably seen over the years, given the complex set of players, at times it's been a challenge keeping all the partners moving in the same direction. The Capital Improvement Board was a structure supported by both the city and the county, although with some opposition from the former mayor, that allowed us to cut through some of this complexity, in particular by keeping the role of us elected officials to areas of broad policy and fiscal oversight. That is, keeping our hands out of the pot, but yet maintaining fiscal oversight and transparency. And it's through that framework that I urge us to all work together as we move forward. And that means recognizing a few things. So first, thinking in terms of broad policy goals. Some of those policy goals, I think, are actually really well reflected in the draft letter that's already been circulated. Avoiding new parking subsidies, for example, applying city standards for green buildings, ensuring that the food and beverage tax are the sole source of expansion funds. Second, also recognizing, though, that policy goals may conflict. So, for example, the eastern option for expansion also provides the best opportunity to use the existing city parking garage, but may also require an alley location. And when they conflict, we all have to be willing to compromise in order to achieve the best overall outcome. Third, recognizing the delay costs real money, and each unnecessary delay both increases costs and hinders the ability of the convention center to book future events in order to ensure a smooth transition to the newly expanded center. Fourth, that we avoid putting ad hoc or new requirements on this project that are different from existing city policies that have been applied in the past. And finally, that putting on specific requirements that increase the cost of the project and attempting to divert funding to other projects both have the same effect, which is to make it much less likely to have a successful convention center. So I remain excited to work with all the folks at the table here with other community stakeholders to make this project a success. We are very proud of our community, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue to show off what we have to offer to visitors and expose them to our local artists, performers, restaurants, cultural and street life, as well as provide local community groups with an affordable opportunity to hold their events and celebrations. And we can demonstrate that even large numbers of local government officials can work together effectively to deliver results.
Yep.
So and just one other comment, I kind of wanted to shift gears and just, there were clearly some, not concerns, but, yeah, I'll just call them concerns raised in the letter about the funding for the operations of the center. And I definitely wanted to just point out, if members of the city, particularly new members of the city council don't know him, Mike Campbell, who's sitting over there, the president of the Convention and Visitors Commission, who, if any counselors want, I don't think this is not necessarily the right time to talk about it, but would like kind of an explanation for how the funding of the operations of the convention center work. I think he and others who serve on that commission, including myself, can help put concerns to rest that there will not be enough funding to actually operate the center with the innkeeper's tax. One of the, I do want to make one specific point, is that in early 2026, the bond for the existing convention center is going to be paid off, which is going to free up over $625,000 a year in existing innkeeper's tax. So that is more than the existing subsidy of the operations of the current convention center. So literally, their revenue overnight will more than double with respect to the existing operational costs. And that's not even assuming any increase in innkeeper's tax at all. So, but we can get into more of those discussions later with the right people. I just kind of want.
If I had known we were gonna go around in a circle, I would not have sat next to Jeff, because, you know. No, but I think a couple of things that I wanna add, and just a few things, some of the macro statements that have already been made and things that I've already said as well. I think the first thing is to be very clear, I think from my position, I really want to see a convention center happen. I mean, we need a convention center. Before I was on the city council, it was a pain point in my professional life that I experienced time and time again, that there were many things that we wanted to do in Bloomington that we should have been doing in Bloomington, but we just could not do in Bloomington. That sort of leads me to, I think, my overarching comment here, which is, we have a responsibility as elected officials to govern as well as, I mean, I think sometimes we have not been mindful of the effects that our words and our discussions and even drafts of our letters have on the community that hears those words. And as a consequence, I think that our conversation around the convention center has often veered towards imagination of a convention center that we're not even talking about, if that makes sense. So in other words, we're arguing against things that aren't even on the table in the first place, in terms of what size this convention center actually is, who the market that we're thinking of coming to this convention center actually is, what the demand for this convention center actually is. And we need to hold ourselves accountable to that responsibility. Like it is irresponsible of us to allow the public dialogue to go in that direction, where people start feeling that we're talking about something that, again, is not really on the table. And so, you know, when I think about what is being proposed for the convention center, the size of the expansion and the existing demand for those spaces, it's something that I'm really excited about. It's something that I'm very supportive of. And I just think, again, you know, we need to think about how everything that we do is signaling to this market, to future people who want to be here. And I'll illustrate everything I'm saying. I was speaking with the folks, and I hope they don't mind me calling out at Secretly Canadian, one of the largest independent music distributors in the world. And they are based here in Bloomington, right? These aren't people from somewhere else, and they want a convention center here because they want to be able to continue to expand their business, right? And so we have to really be mindful about those type of stakeholders, right? It's there, and that we represent their interests, and we want to make sure that we're creating this in a way that is giving certainty to those stakeholders that we're going to move forward and they're going to support you and help your businesses to expand and thrive and bring people to this wonderful city and generally the county as well.
Nice stuff, that stuff.
Yeah.
I was thinking a lot of what my colleagues have said. I also want to say, like, I work, I think, pretty closely with Talisha Coppin, and so like, it at least bi-monthly or twice a month. Not sure what bi-monthly really means. At least twice a month, I meet with Talisha and we talk about like what the needs of the current convention center are and what the needs of the future convention center would be. I'm really excited about this project.
Yes.
And I am ready to keep it moving, so to speak. So I don't have a lot to say. I think he's not covered a lot of what we're really focused on here. And I'm not at all trying to be combative when we like write a letter. I think every single person at this table wants the convention center to be as good as it can get. We need a lot of money that we have.
Thank you for having us in. As I've said, listen to everyone talk, it's occurred to me, we probably need to be doing this more often. on a
Yeah.
Friday.
With cupcakes.
This is helpful.
Okay.
Mary,
I'm on it.
Thank you for this welcoming. The thing that occurs to me is that it is easier to meet in person sometimes and to break down the electronic barriers that seem to have come up and maybe stifle intents and other things like that. I'll offer this. I don't know that I'm gonna give too much more than what's already been offered, but my council colleagues will particularly probably groan here in a second because they've heard me say this a lot lately. The longer I serve in this office, every hour, it seems that I focus more on the doing and less on the not doing. And do. I think about that all the time. And I think about the number of issues that just in this one council seat at large for Monroe County that I've dealt with in just today. And all the doing that still needs to be done on that, and then everything else personally and in my day job I've got to do. And the reason I bring that up is the thing I like about the CIB is the CIB has been like a missile in getting the doing going. Missiles sometimes, maybe not the best connotation. But when you look at the work that is going, that is like a time, metronome, whatever you want to say, it's happening. And it needs to happen. And my heavens, the discussions that we've had on that. The other thing I'll just say is, we're all gonna have strong thoughts on every issue. That's what makes this community strong, right? We not only have strong thoughts, but then we open up our microphones and folks come in with those thoughts as well. And being a public servant here means that we hear a lot of that. I think we're all gonna weigh in. The thing I like about the CIB is through those representatives and through that time clock, they will work, take a look at these considerations and figure out what they can do to get that done. It has been said several times that Indianapolis is watching us. That can be a lot of bad things. And I don't want to kind of go down that rabbit hole, but we've got a duty to the taxpayers here and to the jobs that this will do and the strengthening and the things that it will attract. I always think about this. We are one of the few Southern Indiana communities that people want to be in and people want to come to. And I'm not saying that to denigrate other communities, but this is a good headache to have. And so as I really think about all this, that doing is a part of that process. The other thing I'll just throw into the mix is that while also having strong opinions in this community, one thing we've always done really well, and I'm a contextualist, I'm always thinking about where we are, where we're heading, where we are, where we're heading. One thing we've always done well is reuse and have a vision for the future. I remember when this opened as City Hall, people said it's way too big. And they thought it was this is just awful. Why would they have done that? It's too big. I doubt any of you at City Hall feel like you are in a NFL field with no room. If you look at where you were with the Waldron, right? I mean, all of that. And if you look at all the issues we deal with space. And then if you look at that convention center, I remember when that's car dealership. And then it became this, and that's been some time. And I think with our vision to the future, we have to think about the folks coming in that want to be. As far as civic space, I think our current convention center system has a very good policy about not-for-profits getting in there. The biggest thing I hear from our not-for-profits is we can't get in there because we need to do something really, really big.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's competing things that will make those things work, but we have good headaches to have. And that is that people want to be here, they want to go there. I think in our jobs, we have to strengthen and support that. And so if that doing can get this done, then more power to it. We cannot stop now. We gotta do. And I appreciate all the sentiment expressed to around this table to do just that.
Thank you. I'd like to go to Kate Rosenbarger. Are you still there? You want to take a turn in this round robin?
I'm here. Oh, I don't know that I need a turn. I like the purpose of, I thought right now we were at a part where we were asking our council, our county colleagues to weigh in, and has everybody gone? Or, I mean, and the mayor, I don't know. I think I can weigh in. I mean, I have notes. I don't know when it's time to kind of go through. I could say some stuff. Okay, thank you, Isabel. I'll just say some things. Okay.
I saw this as an opportunity for all of us to
just chat.
because we
Yeah.
focused on our letter, and so this is an opportunity to speak more broadly about the project.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess something I've thought of at least is some folks have just talked about a little bit the tone of the letter. So I guess I would say sorry about that. I think two attorneys were two of the people writing it, and I think we are very much trained to be clear and concise, and flowery language tends to get lost in the weeds. So when we were talking about vision at our last council member work session on this, and what council members wanted to see in this, I think it was just, a goal of staying really clear in that process. And so I will say that. And I think we talked in the beginning about putting in some more flowery language, and that if that appeases folks, that's fine with me too, I would say. I think the goal of this letter for me was to give guidance, or as the mayor said, guardrails, to not arrive at an expanded convention center with bonds in front of us that doesn't meet city goals, transportation plan goals, comp plan goals, and what residents want to see in that space. So I think a big part of it was for council members to weigh in on the vision and give guidance to $50 million that we're going to have to bond for and approve at the end of this process. So I can't speak for my colleagues, but I think we don't want to get to the end of this process and have bonds fail because it is not maybe what folks want to see in a convention center. So I think I think we have an administration, right, that talks about different perspectives, adding to a vision. And I think that is what this is. Isabel, you sent the email back today to Penny about, and we're all allowed, I guess, to weigh in on this process about do's and don'ts, wants, dislikes. I think it's unfortunate Councilmember Rollo isn't here. I know he has talked for, years about civic space in this convention center. And tonight or today, it sounds like Cheryl is saying there cannot be any civic space in this convention center. That's against the use of the tax dollars. And let's see.
I don't think that's what Cheryl said, Kate. I think that was a misunderstanding.
Okay. I guess what I typed, yeah.
Like the definition of civic space and what civic space really means, and I think that it was.
Okay, I guess I heard the CIB was saying civic space isn't part of the expansion, but so I think that's something to circle back on, because I know many of us, especially Councilmember Rollo, has said time and time again that that's incredibly important to him and his constituents. So I think, you know, like that's just something we need to talk about. So I don't know. I think this is this is part of the process, I would say. And I understand, like, I think, you know, maybe friction in the room or something that really hasn't been talked about is that city council, our role is approving these bonds. And I would say, like, this is an insane amount of money, $50 million, maybe a little bit more than that. And so I take it incredibly seriously how this gets used, right? I do think there are ways that it could be done that doesn't bring like a shining new gem to our downtown. I think there are ways that this can be done that it's like an art focus and pretty, like Kansas City has the shuttlecocks. I talk about that a lot. Like they have the huge shuttlecocks that are like, I don't know, enormous in like one of their art museums, green spaces. And it's like something like that, something people come to town to see, right? Because I mean, part of this, I mean, the point of this is attracting tourists and visitors to our town. So I think it is, I do feel like as one of the authors of this, I think in like being present with all council in the last work session, I think we all have like the best interest in mind here to like make something efficiently as possible, you know, and not waste time and just add to the vision and everything. So I do feel now like I'm rambling, so I will stop.
Cheryl, do you want to just clarify what you meant about civic space?
I do. From the very beginning, the idea of the convention center also being a civic center was important for the whole community. We were not thinking of it though, as having specific rooms set aside for civic uses. Because just the cost of operating those, building and operating those rooms is not going to be realized unless they are part of a convention event. And those events include what many of us know as fundraising dinners, other events for not-for-profits in our community. And they do get a special rate because they're not-for-profits. That's what our business model for the convention center has set up. And I'm sure this will continue. So those are civic features. That is civic space that is not duplicated anywhere else in our community. And it needs to be expanded because many of our not-for-profits have outgrown our convention center. So it still is intended for civic uses, but not dedicated to specific civic meeting spaces, such as, for example, a teen center. I think there are alternatives in our community that can be used for a teen center, and there are teen rooms in our community already at the library, etc. The same is true for senior centers. We don't have a facility right now downtown, which would be ideal, but it would be great to have. I just don't see how it would be possible to include that under the umbrella of a convention center. So that's what I meant, Kate. I hope that clarifies. Thanks.
Thank you. Hopi?
There were a lot of things like that y'all covered that I did not take specific notes on, and I don't think that I'm gonna try to address them all without having done that. I do want to talk about the Civic Center thing for just a second though, because I honestly, I think that we're talking about two different definitions of a civic center.
Yes.
Because a meeting space that allows local non-for-profits to like use it at a reduced rate, like that doesn't spell civic center to me. That doesn't spell like being a place for our community to be able to just go see something interesting, like a gallery walk room or where I'll say some kind of teen set aside space, and I love the library, that the library has something like that. That is literally the only thing the library has. As somebody who has teenagers, you have the library or you have the mall. And you either send them to a place that they don't wanna go because it's a library, right? Or you send them to a place where people want to sell them things, where you might not want them to go because you don't wanna send them with however much money. And it's really, it is a real lack. And I think that it's great that the prom is often held down there, but once again, that's not this like open inviting space for all. And I guess my vision of a civic center would be some open inviting space, not because you had to pay money to go there, not because you have to volunteer for a specific organization in order to get invited there. And that was, I think, the definition of civic space that we were talking about in our last meeting. And I'm not sure that it's realistic as a pairing, but it's something that is generally severely lacking. And I think to not mention that as something that Bloomington lacks, like I will mention that as something that Bloomington lacks, like every chance I get, not just about teens, but also about seniors. Cause you know, I'm glad you mentioned the east side location in the mall. My mother actually goes there regularly. It is great. But it is a shop in the mall.
Yeah.
It is less than ideal.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a variety of reasons. And I just think that that needs to get lifted up as something that this community lacks, and this is gonna be a big building space, and. You know, one of the things that we talked about at that last meeting was the idea of, you know, one night a month could. Some space be set aside for teens or seniors or whatever it is, and that's not so much a building space thing, that is. Programmatic kind of concept that you can say, oh, like one night a month, it could get decorated for a teen dance, right? One day a month, it could be a place for seniors to come and play games or do whatever. One day a month, it could be set aside for, certain, nonprofit services. I mean, one of the nonprofit service issues that I have on the east side is that if you need to access, say, food pantry, food resources from the east side, if you don't have your own personal vehicle, you've got to take 2 buses in order to get to any of those other places. If we had some kind of distribution center right across the street, essentially from the downtown bus depot, like I could just see that really being helpful. So those were the kinds of civic use spaces. So it's not like there was this corner constantly set aside for this group, but thinking about working that in, that was kind of this vision that I had in terms of civic uses. And so it was more programmatic than that. I also wanted to, Councilor McKim, I did watch your little speech that you gave at the meeting the other day, and you mentioned some of the sustainability things. And those are things that Councilmember Flaherty, who's not here, has expressed multiple times. Over, I'm not sure how long, basically as long as I've known him, the importance for things to be solar ready, the importance to not depend on fossil fuels, that whole list of sustainable design things. So that is kind of standard at this point, you could say. At least I consider that a standard piece of what we hope for in different things, that you can't make a blanket statement for all development because of state law, et cetera, but we can say for city-owned spaces, for PUDs, for example, we can say you need to have this sustainability design. So I wanted to make sure to mention that to you.
We only have 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh, yes, I'll stop talking.
Sorry.
Isabel, go.
No, I'll defer to Courtney and Andy. I want to make sure you have time.
Thanks. I'll be quick. I didn't take notes along the way on my things I wanted to say anyhow, which is probably good for everybody. I think, I don't wanna see a convention center downtown, I wanna see a convention center downtown that we are proud of. Like, I'm really excited about this project, and I think we all have some really good ideas. And I'm really encouraged by the tone here today and all the ideas, you know, that are being put out there, and just everybody's willingness to listen to each other. So thank you. You know, I think there's a lot that was said for me to think about. I'm not gonna get into any specifics, because I'll be here all day opening a can of worms, but, I think, Trent, you know, you made a really good point that it's really hard to gather tone electronically, so maybe some more group meetings might be really nice, and more cupcakes, hint, hint. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm really excited, and I think that, in the spirit of moving forward, you know, we need to also keep this spirit and extend it toward the CIB and not try to micromanage them. I don't know that we necessarily are trying to micromanage them, but I think maybe we just need to remind ourselves that it can come across that way, and to let them do their jobs, because that's why we trust them. Thank you. Andy?
So I'm gonna bring back around to the letter really quickly, because so I hear two things going on here. People talking about the tone of the letter, and then disagreement or concern about things in the letter. We've had some, and I've really seen this skyways issue, parking, the civic space. These are things that are still, I hear today, at play in terms of what some electeds have as really big priorities. I understand this is delicate balance between moving forward, you know, the state wondering what's going on, time is money on it. I get that, but it's such a massive project, and there's some skepticism out there. To my experience is that this is, and always has been, a bit of a controversial project in the overall community. And elected officials and elected bodies are where I think people in the community feel like that's their only way to have some representation and input into what happens with this project. So I understand the desire and the need to be moving forward, but I don't agree that this letter, first of all, it's critical in my view that we as elected officials who are representing people, everyone's a stakeholder in the community, not just certain sectors of the community. Everybody's a stakeholder in this thing. This is major. We should view the CIB, who this letter starts off thanking for all their work, and appreciates their efforts, and then hopes the CIB will incorporate information and guidance into its decisions. I hope we can focus on these important issues that sort of come up there, that I feel like we're not there yet. We're not there yet on some of these things that have been illustrated, I think, today. And we need to be open to, or in my view, to understand that we are the conduit for what is and always has been a project that the community is not as on board with overall. There's a lot of people who really are. There's a lot of people who really aren't. There's a lot of people who are, yeah. So, that's all I'll add, because everything else has been said.
Well, thank you all. We're at 5. I guess I just really appreciate hearing from everybody. I think that, the letter is not intended to slow down the project or to, throw a wrench in the works. It's meant to prevent, problems down the road when we're asked to approve, a multi-million-dollar bond for funding the project. And even though, you know, we have a CIB, and it's not that I don't trust the CIB, but we're the ones that were elected, like Andy said. And the city council, the 9 of us, had one appointee to the CIB. And just a reminder that the funds are the city's food and beverage tax funds, so it is our responsibility to make sure this is the best project that it can be. And I think the ideas shared today are really great, and I appreciate everybody being here. And let's just continue the conversations as we move along. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.